Howdy, Ags. Welcome to the Aggie Women's 2020 Leadership Conference. I'm Mary McDowell, class of 1980 and the 2020 Aggie Women President. We hope you enjoyed the slides we just showed, and we're so thrilled to have you here and be hosting this virtual event with you. We're honored to have you and welcome our speakers, Dr. Christine Blackburn, Kaylee Marcos, class of 2019, and Natalie Parks, class of 2022, who we will introduce shortly. If you're a student on this call seeking extra credit, please don't forget to fill out the form. It's at text.ag/AggieWomenLREC. Again, that's text.ag/AggieWomenLREC. As Aggie Women, we are here to connect, engage, and give back by promoting the active engagement of women. 2020 marks our 13th year of accomplishing this goal through facilitating membership, awarding scholarships, hosting network events, and more. This year has been really busy for the Aggie Women's Network. You might have noticed that we launched a new website and a new membership campaign thanks to the work of Aggie Women members and support from our sponsors. Stay tuned for more communication from us, including a new newsletter and more information on our programs. We also launched the Amplify Women's Mentoring Circle for current and former Aggie Women students in partnership with the Texas A&M Women's Resource Center on campus. We had planned to launch Amplify by pairing up about 25 current and former students, but we had so much interest that we are now launching with 75. If you are interested and you weren't able to get in on this inaugural launch, check back for our spring launch. Some of our Amplify participants are on this call, so a big shout out and howdy to you all who are here. We also began a new virtual series called Beyond the Books. While you learn a lot while at A&M, this series talks about learning beyond the books. So look for our next Zoom session. It'll also be listed on our website. We continue our well-attended and much beloved First Thursday speaker series, discussing topics requested by current students and Aggie Women Network members. It is held at and through the generosity of our partner, Messina Hoff, in normal times, and will be held virtually for the rest of the year. We have 2 Presidential Endowed Scholarship recipients, both doing really great in school, Hannah Ahn and Reagan Isbell. Also, congratulations to our newest Legacy Award recipients that Kristin Cox, our president-elect, will announce shortly. You also probably saw a few slides on them. Our 2020 Eminent Award recipient will also be announced in the near future. We are proud that 2 of our past Legacy Award recipients, Carol Jordan, class of 80, class of 80, and Shireen Williams, 86, are receiving the 2020 Distinguished Alumnus Award, A&M's highest honor bestowed on a former student. Carol Jordan was a founding member of Aggie Women as well and co-president the first year out. So you're in for a treat tonight as we celebrate our women leaders and discuss leading through change, our first leadership reception hosted virtually via Zoom. As you saw from the slides before we started, we're about to introduce our auction. Here are a few words from Meryl Bonarego, co-owner and founder of Messina Hoff. Listen to our keynote speaker on leading through change. Hear from a panel of student leaders. Engage you in breakout discussions. Hear from our president-elect Kristin Cox, and of course, close with announcing funds that you helped us raise and our door prize winner. So next up, we have Melissa Johnson, class of 2003 and a member of Aggie Women Board of Directors, to tell you all about our auction. Hey, Melissa, take it away.
Thank you, Mary. We really appreciate your leadership this year. Thank you for everything you have done for us. Like Mary said, my name is Melissa Johnson, and I'm here to tell you about our silent auction and our door prize this evening. First, let's start with our door prize. I'm sure you saw the lovely Kendra Scott earrings on the slideshow earlier. Well, I wanted to let you know that these are limited edition and they are perfect for Aggie Game Day. So how do you win them is probably what you're asking. Well, in order to win them, you have to stay present for the entire event and we will announce them at the end. It's going to be the very last thing I do, so make sure you stay connected. And for our silent auction, we're excited this year that it is online. We have already had tons of people bidding this week. We have a variety of items, such as a stay at Messina Hof, some different packages, and of course a ring guard from Montelago's Jewelry. The auction will close at 6:45, so please take a chance to look at the items and bid on something you like. You do not have to be present to win. If you are local, we will contact you about your item delivery, and if you're out of town, we will mail your item to you next week. Unless you win the ring guard, you have to come get that in person. The Women's Network is able to bring current and former students these different programs because of the support of our generous donors throughout the year. The system also gives you an opportunity to not only bid on items, but also make a donation. So the link has been put in the chat so you can start bidding and donating. And don't forget, it closes at 6:45. I hope you enjoy the auction and you find something you like. It's never too early to start thinking about holiday presents. Now I'd like to take the time to introduce Ms. Meryl Barriano. Ms. Meryl?
Howdy, Ags. I'm class of 75, and my husband and I started Messina Hof Winery here in 1977. So it's been our privilege to host this annual leadership reception here at Messina Hof. Normally I would be saying, welcome to Messina Hof Vineyard and the Aggie Women Leadership Reception. But because of COVID and because we are really concerned about the health of our Aggie women, we are doing it virtually this fall. And though I miss seeing everybody in person, face to face, and do pray that by spring we'll be able to do it again at Messina Hof, I think it's so exciting that Aggie Women Network is able to bring these mentorship and networking opportunities to the world, actually, to Aggies everywhere virtually. Messina Hof has been blessed to have partnered with Aggie Women Network to create and host this annual reception celebrating our new Aggie Women leaders on campus, as well as Aggie Women staff and faculty, and also our first Thursdays that we host monthly during the school year. We are so proud of our Aggie Women leaders and all that they have accomplished, and thankful to be able to serve you all. As you know, this is a fundraiser also for the Aggie Women Network. And Melissa talked about the auction, but we have another thing too that gives you an opportunity to support your Aggie Women Network. We have each year a commemorative label that's designed by an Aggie woman artist. And this year we have one designed by Susan Warwis. She's class of 1977. And it graces two of our Messina Hof wines. So we have a red, big bold red. It's a blend of Petit Verdot, Petit Syrah, and Cabernet. So think of juicy steaks and grilled burgers. And then we have a really smooth, dry, delicate white wine that's just about for any palate. It's an easy food pairing wine. We say here at Messina Hof that we make two kinds of wine, maroon and white. So this is the maroon and we have the white. And you can purchase these online. I think there's a link that's being posted. It is, they're great for entertaining, collecting, gift giving, and they would also make great Christmas presents for the Aggies that you love. Now, if you are an Aggie artist or know one, be on the lookout for information about our 2021 Aggie Woman Artist Label Competition, because you could be our next featured artist on the labels for next year. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce our speaker and moderator tonight. Listen to her bio if you didn't get a chance to read it when the slide was coming across. She serves as the Deputy Director of the Pandemic and Biosecurity Program at the Scowcroft Institute of International Affairs in the Bush School. She is conducting research on various aspects of pandemic disease policy and control. She is also adjunct faculty in the Department of Health Promotion and Community Health Science in the School of Public Health. Thank you, Lord, that she is planted here in the Brazos Valley at this time, in this place. Who better to share her experiences on leading through change? So I present to you Dr. Christine Blackburn. Thank you for being with us.
Right. Thank you so much for that nice introduction. Howdy, and thank you to everyone for having me. I know that we had originally planned to do this event in person, but I just want to thank all of the organizers that were able to take challenging circumstances and still put together a wonderful event. The theme is leadership through change, and that's really what they've shown. This is the first time I've had the honor of giving a keynote speech, and I'm excited that it's on a topic that I'm so passionate about. I believe that women have an incredible potential to be great leaders. It's often women who are brought in as CEOs of companies when companies need to be turned around. This is in fact the most likely time for a woman to become a CEO. And if you look at the international response to COVID-19, countries led by women have had an overall more effective response. This is not to say that countries led by men have not had an effective response, but I think the fact that countries led by women have had almost universally the best responses shows the amazing power of women leaders in a time of change or crisis. The first example I got of what it means to be a strong woman and a leader was from my grandmother. She was only about 5 feet tall and instilled both fear and respect in all of her children and grandchildren. She attended college in the 1930s at a time when many women didn't, and she worked outside the home for several years after she was married, again, challenging the norms of her time. She always stressed the importance of education, and she encouraged her daughter, my mother, even more strongly than her sons to achieve academically. Despite the expectations she had for her children and her grandchildren, she also had a favorite saying, "Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof." It always signaled to me that I was too stressed or too concerned about if I was going to reach my future goals. Over time, it has come to remind me to have compassion. Compassion for myself and for the people I lead. Whether or not that was her intention, I can't say, but what that verse, arguably her favorite because we heard it most often, signifies is that days, especially during times of change or crisis, are hard enough. Don't make them harder. The second lesson I learned about leadership did not come until I entered graduate school. The first college class I ever taught, I was only 23 years old. And by taught, I don't mean guest lectured or served as a TA. I mean, I was the instructor for the course. I was responsible for creating the syllabus and writing the lectures and teaching and doing all of the grading. And I remember being so nervous because I had no idea how I was going to manage a class of 100 undergraduate students who were essentially the same age as I was. And I was also worried because my department was not friendly to women. Most female grad students were not allowed to teach, and we used to joke that the only way they would give you a class is if none of the men were available to teach it. Throughout my graduate career, the idea that women were not capable of leading or instructing was very pervasive. During that time, I was told all sorts of things about how women aren't qualified to be leaders. I was told women just aren't as smart as men and that they aren't able to make important decisions, that women are too emotional. I was asked if I was a secretary when I was in fact the leader of the research project. I was even once told that there is no place for women with children in academia. These experiences stick out in my head vividly, even today, and I know that I wasn't the only female graduate student that had these experiences. But despite the challenges, and maybe because of them, my graduate school experience also taught me a lot about myself, my strengths and my weaknesses. I struggled throughout my graduate school teaching career to be taken seriously and often had male students question my intelligence and my qualifications, many times in front of all 100 of the other students in the class. I learned that I had to be firm and how to control a class and still maintain the give and take format that allows for open discussion of ideas, which I think is vitally important in a classroom. Throughout the years, I gained confidence in my knowledge and in myself, and I learned that I loved encouraging students to have confidence in themselves and to trust their knowledge, just like I had learned to do. So fast forward to today. I'm the Deputy Director of the Pandemic and Biosecurity Policy Program at the Bush School, and have had an amazing opportunity to be a leader for our program during the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned from this is that leading in a time of change is hard. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's long days, not very much sleep, constant stress, and more than one emotional breakdown. That might have just been me, but that was definitely has been part of my experience. I think leading in a time of change means you will be knocked down, and at times you will feel defeated, deflated, or both at the same time. It requires perseverance that leadership in normal times does not. There have been many times during this pandemic that I felt like the things I need to have happen were out of my control to make happen, and that my messages weren't getting through. But at the same time, I felt more determined than I've ever been, because I knew it was my responsibility to be knowledgeable, to share that knowledge, and to help people make the best decisions they could for themselves and their family. I really do think that my experience with COVID-19 so far has helped me grow more than any other leadership experience that I've had. I still face some of the same struggles I faced when I taught my first college class. People are often surprised by my age, and sometimes I'm not sure whether or not they believe I'm really qualified based on their reactions. But today, I trust my experience, and I have colleagues and mentors that are encouraging, and they push me to find my own voice. And because of the wonderful mentors I've had since I came to the Bush School, I have been given the opportunity to exercise my leadership. To me, good leadership requires compassion, confidence, and perseverance. Whether that is in the classroom with students or making decisions for your job, you have to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. You have to think about what challenges other people might face and how you can make a choice that benefits the most people. You have to trust yourself and your experience. You have to know that the decisions you're making are being made utilizing everything that you've learned. And you have to be willing to persevere. As a leader in a time of change, you won't be able to make everyone happy all the time. You will get discouraged and possibly overwhelmed, but that doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job. About 2 hours ago, I was on a Zoom meeting with a friend, getting ready to talk about COVID-19 on his podcast, and I offhandedly mentioned that I had this speech tonight, and I was worried because it was so far out of my comfort zone. And he said, if someone asked me to talk about your leadership, I would tell them about the work you did with us in Lake Providence. I'll be honest, the comment surprised me. For the last 2 years, I've been conducting a research project in this tiny little town called Lake Providence, with the goal of understanding how extreme poverty impacts risk of infection with parasitic diseases and how those infections further the cycle of poverty. I loved that project, but never in my life would I have put it in the category of leadership. But to him, the community organizer for Lake Providence, he saw the work I had done with the community as leadership. And I wanted to end with that thought today, because I think we all, including myself, have this idea of what exercising leadership looks like. It's being strong and decisive and bringing our troops through the trenches. But maybe it's also just being there for people and for a community that needs you. And maybe we need to remember that leadership can manifest itself in our everyday actions. Thank you. And now I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce one of our two amazing Aggie student women that we have here tonight. Kaylee Marcos received her Bachelor's in Science in Sports Management and is currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Marketing. She served as the 2020 chair of the Texas A&M University Muster Committee, which, like everything else in 2020, brought a unique set of challenges that she overcame to run a beautiful virtual Aggie Muster. So please welcome Kaylee Marcos.
Thank you so much, Christine. I really enjoyed all that you had to say, and it's so interesting. I think so many of us can draw parallels from what you said in our own leadership opportunities, similar to exactly what I'm about to talk about right now. And as you mentioned, I had the incredible opportunity to serve as the chair of the Campus Muster Committee this past year. And before I dive into my experience with that, let me give a little bit of context for those of you who might not be as familiar with the tradition of muster. So Aggie Muster is an annual observance and recognition of Aggies that have passed away within the previous year. And it's a tradition that has grown and transformed over the years, but has always really been centered around the idea of connectedness and unity across generations, and really emphasizes the commonalities that we share as Aggies. And there's over 300 musters that take place around the world, and many of them look quite different, some being very somber, others being much more celebratory. But what's consistent across all of these ceremonies is the reading of the roll call, where the names of the fallen Aggies are read, and those that are in attendance at the ceremony answer here. And this moment is one of recognition and honor that really perpetuates the memories and legacies of the Aggies that have gone before us. So as many of you may have seen or experienced this past year with Muster, it looked quite a bit different as it was converted entirely to an online and virtual experience. You know, our lives have now become much more integrated with the changes that COVID has enacted. But there was a period of time around March when widespread change with cancellations and postponements seemed to be happening every single day. And this was the state of the world that myself and my committee returned to in March. We all left College Station for spring break, and by the time we came back, nearly a year's worth of work and planning had to be transformed into something entirely different in less than a month. So the result of all this kind of rapid planning was a byproduct of great collaboration, communication efforts, and creative thinking to develop a website platform that housed all of the muster ceremonies and allowed viewers to interact with the tangible parts of the ceremony, everything from the reflections display to learning about the 50th class reunion, or even answering here for someone. Again, going back to those really integral parts of the ceremony. And although this was all incredibly daunting, this was the moment and the period of time in which I saw true growth and leadership capability come to fruition in both myself and in the members of my committee. And I think it's so interesting because leadership is very much an art and not a science. There is no one right way to lead, and there were certainly other paths that myself and my committee members could have navigated when we confronted this issue. But for me personally, there were a few mindsets or mantras, if you will, that consistently kept me focused and provided context in difficult moments or situations as we navigated this. Firstly, the moment is always fleeting. So don't catch moments, invest in them. Rapid change often makes it seem like time is a luxury that we don't have, and looking too far into the future wastes the time that we have in the present to find solutions. So foresight is never going to be 2020, but you can equip yourself with tools in the present that allow you to better predict the future. And secondly, that other kind of grounding mantra was to know your worth as a leader and as an individual extends beyond one action or failure. Belief in oneself is one of the most powerful tools that a leader can equip themselves with. And that belief is built over time. So giving yourself grace when you fail and credit when you succeed, and understanding that it's a combination of both success and learning from failure that propel you forward will serve you well. So I could go on about the many things that I learned about myself and about others throughout that experience, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to Natalie now, who's going to tell you a bit about herself as well.
Howdy. Thank you, Kaylee, for sharing your story. I know that that was honestly really inspiring to me and to every single person who did watch muster this past spring. Y'all did amazing despite the circumstances. But howdy, my name is Natalie Parks. I just wanted to say that I am so excited and honored to be able to have the opportunity to speak today. And that being said, I'm also really excited about today's theme of leading through change. It's obviously quite relevant to the situation at hand. I think that we can all probably agree that current world circumstances are absolutely wilder than anything we probably could have ever imagined. But I've actually found it kind of oddly refreshing in a way, and I'll explain that mindset in a little bit. But I actually currently serve as the junior class president of the Texas A&M class of 2022. And despite the many changes at hand, it's already been one of the most amazing and impactful life and leadership experiences that I've ever had. Just to provide a little bit of context, the primary role of class president is to focus on fostering class unity. We accomplish this goal by planning events, projects, and collaborating with many other student organizations and student leaders across campus. So when I ran for class president back in February, my platform was actually focused on pursuing positive change within the class of 2022. Looking back on this, I find it somewhat ironic that I totally predicted the theme of this conference, but in all seriousness, I also find it funny that that particular platform, slogan, hashtag that I came up with months ago holds even more weight today than I had ever dreamed that it would. Change can be incredibly intimidating. Yes, this is very true. But on the other hand, isn't it kind of exciting sometimes? Figuring out ways to pull off entire events virtually, for example, a very daunting task to be sure, but something that I've also had to tackle for my own goals ahead. But knowing that there's still a chance of walking away with them being a total success is a motivator in itself. To me, a leader is someone who's capable of taking an idea and running with it. They possess the innate ability to push a concept from the confines of one's brain, past obstacles, emphasis on obstacles, and to completion, no matter what gets in their way. Yes, everything does look a little bit different right now, quote, the new normal. But throughout the course of these past few months, I found that sometimes it really kind of just is up to how you choose to wake up and tackle the day that's in front of you. For me personally, I choose to wake up and view the glass half full, as they say. Every day can be exciting if you want it to be, and if you tell yourself that it can be. I've been able to serve in a multitude of leadership capacities throughout my time in Aggie Land, from the Vice President of Communication of Student Government to planning the biggest event of my life back in the spring as the VP of Community Service for my sorority. And I've had to learn to adapt to changes as they come. I've had to figure out how to roll with the punches, and I can confidently say that we definitely all have had to experience that at some point. But I found that in my years of involvement, leadership growth, and in the many selfless service-related aspects of my life, that sometimes you just honestly have to go with the flow. When you're faced with difficult times, even the most insane worldwide pandemic-related crazy scenarios you can possibly think of, what are the steps that you can still take to accomplish your goals? How can you remain flexible and willing to adapt to change in a rapidly changing world? And you may even need to ask yourself, how many backup plans do I actually need to create? Now, I don't want to talk y'all's ears off for too long, but I am really excited to hear some of the questions that y'all have for both Kaylee and myself here in a second. Thanks, and gig 'em.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. That was fantastic. And thank you, Kaylee. Both really wonderful discussions of what leadership is, especially in the time of COVID-19, a time of significant change. So the first thing we're gonna go into our question and answer, kind of our panel discussion. And the first thing I wanted to ask was that if you have questions of the panel, please submit them into the chat, and then I will serve as the moderator. So I'll make sure that if you have someone specifically that you're asking a question of, make sure you put their name in there so that I know who to direct the question to. And I think I will get it started while we're waiting for questions to be submitted. I think this will go to both of you, but I'm going to ask, I guess, Natalie first, is how has the COVID-19 experience, how has the pandemic affected your experience as a leader? And do you think the challenges that you face have helped you grow as a leader?
Yes, no, for sure. That's an awesome question. I kind of touched on it a little bit in what I just said about kind of like rolling with the punches and coming up with as many backup plans as you might need, just because when things are literally changing with, the snap of someone's fingers, you have to be prepared in as many aspects as you can possibly prepare for, which can definitely be difficult to do. And it really is just, like I said, kind of going with the flow and being reactive to situations, and being as proactive as you possibly can. Let's see, even though things are definitely very challenging right now in the ways that we are also able to tackle these issues, I really do feel like right now in today's world, we're offered so many different resources. And I feel like something that's been really unique and kind of exciting, I guess, a little bit about the situations that we've been thrown into for COVID is actually making the most of those resources and really figuring out, for example, I had no idea what Zoom was until the semester went online, and now we use it for everything. Like that's a resource that existed that we didn't know, or I know I didn't know existed. And now I'm in Zoom calls like 24/7 and doing things like this, and just thinking how you can make the most of every situation with even like the small resources and virtual and technology and things and stuff that we have. And the second part of the question was asking like growing as a leader.
Yeah, growing as.
Yes. So I think something for me that's really important is self-reflection. And you have to really try not to get caught up in the moment, even when there is so much crazy stuff going on. Take a second to step back and self-reflect. That for me is definitely a part of leadership growth. And we definitely have had a lot more time, I feel like, than usual to take the time to self-reflect on everything that's going on and how you're leading in different capacities, et cetera, and how you're reacting to events and stuff. But really just taking that time for yourself to think, what are the ways that, yes, this happened and I can't change the past, but what are things that I can do going forward to kind of even mold and shift how you react to future situations. That's kind of all over the place, but yeah.
All right, no, thank you. That was very informative. Kaylee, I'm actually going to direct a different question at you that's from Stephanie Murphy. She said that she loved how you said, don't catch the moments, invest in them. And what is the moment that you didn't plan for or expect that presented a leadership opportunity for you?
Absolutely. So I think that question actually perfectly sums up my entire muster-related experience post-March this past year. And that thought really came from the fact that, I think there's a massive lesson in letting go of this idea of control when something so unprecedented like this happens. I think that we often associate the idea of being a good leader with having all of your boxes checked and having a perfectly laid plan of how things are going to go. But the reality of the situation is that there's always going to be some type of COVID, that whether it's that large or something that's much smaller, that comes in and kind of wreaks havoc on those plans. And so I think that this has all been one massive lesson in terms of leadership about how sometimes you just have to let go of a certain amount of control and be prepared to find solutions and to think creatively and to overcome challenges, and also how to navigate guiding your people in a different direction. I would say, again, that thought of investing in the moments and not catching them came with my philosophy for how to lead my entire committee, who had their entire world kind of turned around. We very quickly could have taken an approach of, this is never going to be what it was. It's not going to be the same type of muster experience. We're not going to be able to give the same value to our honored families. And I think the minute we take on that mindset is the minute when we stop thinking creatively and we're, looking for the best possible solutions. So rather than, kind of catching those moments, investing in the time that we had, even though it was limited, and trying to come up with the best possible solutions, that entire experience kind of encapsulated that question. So.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the things in something like COVID or whatever the next challenge is just being flexible for whatever the day throws at you, right?
Exactly.
So Natalie, I want to ask, how do you think that your COVID experience has molded you going forward as an Aggie?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's taught me, and kind of a little bit like what Kaylee was just saying, really to be present. That's something that I think a lot about the spring semester, for example, right at the very beginning of the pandemic when everything started. And I remember for me, the month of February was absolutely crazy, and I didn't really have time to invest in my relationships in my life with my friends and just kind of growing. And for me, that is like one of my, important fields as a leader, is investing in relationships and building relationships with people. And I was so busy in the month of February, I just kept telling myself, like, after spring break, I'm going to come back and I'm going to see all my friends, and I'm going to like build in those goals and relationships and invest in those people that I love. And then we never came back for spring break. And I think that looking back on it, I wish that I had taken even those like 30 minutes that I had maybe on one of less crazy day in the month of February to reach out to someone I hadn't talked to in a while. And I did a lot of that during shelter at place, and when we didn't really have much else to do except for, you know, talk to our friends virtually on FaceTime and things like that. But I think that COVID has really, really taught me to stay present and not take things for granted, especially just like all the things that we're realizing now that, you know, a couple months ago were so normal, just meeting someone at a coffee shop and literally every little thing that you can think of, how at one point that was normal life, and now things right now and going forward are looking not like that anymore. And so just really taking advantage of this little bit of extra time that we have with kind of online classes as well, and really just making the most of the things that I once didn't think were a big deal, but then I realized after that maybe we don't have as much time in the world as we thought we did.
Great, yeah, thank you. So we have another one that's directed at all three of us. And I'll let Kaylee start with this one, but what leadership skill or trait have you gained in direct correlation with your time at Texas A&M? So in other words, what trait do you feel you wouldn't have if you weren't an Aggie?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think that we have 6 really great kind of core values to pull from in terms of opportunities that we can get to expand ourselves as leaders. And selfless service was always one that was so prominent for me and kind of guided everything that I did. And I think it also slowly kind of integrated itself into my leadership style as well. The act of leading is being comprehensive, always looking around, always looking to others around you, and seeing how they're doing, seeing what they need, keeping in mind what your mission is and what your overall goal is. And I think that, in leading, it's important to always keep track of the people around you, but it's also important to take stock in how you're doing, because without, taking care of yourself, without, capitalizing and realizing the skills that you're putting in place and how you're communicating, without taking stock of that, you're never going to grow or develop. You're going to, kind of hit a plateau where you don't excel past a certain mark. And so I think all of that kind of selfless service ties in with an element of confidence. While it's great to help other people and to seek to selflessly do other things and always care about other people, there's an element of confidence that has to come in, and knowing that, you can support other people to the best of your abilities, but then you also need to support yourself and that belief in yourself so you can be the best that you can be.
Okay, thank you. Natalie, what would you say? What trait do you feel you wouldn't have if you weren't an Aggie as a leader?
Yes, no, I really like this question, because something that's really, really important to me is values. And I think kind of a lot about like what my values are, and also just kind of like that self-reflection aspect of things, and kind of thinking how my values changed and what has become like more important to me and things like that, just as I've experienced more things as a leader, as a friend, as a human being, as an Aggie. And Kaylee kind of hit on this like a little bit at the end. Confidence is actually something that I have struggled with for a really long time in my life. And coming into college, and that is an entirely new environment where you are on your own, you're independent, you have to find those ways to succeed for yourself pretty much by yourself. And something that I'm still working on it today, every single day of my life, but being confident in yourself and your abilities and what you are truly capable of. I feel like, especially being a woman leader in the world that we live in, and looking at kind of women's roles in society throughout the course of history, and seeing how confidence has always been a little bit difficult for women to build up. Not everybody, and not in every single situation, but I know for me personally, that's something that has always kind of impeded on my success and has always just been like a mental roadblock for me. But I'm actually in a leadership program called Maroon and White on campus, and we get matched with a mentor. She's actually here she's here today watching, so howdy Kaylee. But we actually had a conversation about confidence and being confident in ourselves and our abilities. And so just like things like that, having those conversations, and like I said, self-reflection, I've been hitting on that a lot, and thinking about how your experiences help you grow as a person, and how if you aren't confident in what you are able to do as a leader, then it messes up a lot of things. And so I think that is definitely something that I've learned to deal with and to work on probably the most throughout my time here. And a lot of it does come down to just kind of like being in college and discovering yourself as a person and what you're capable of. And even if you don't think you're capable of something, there are at least 50 other people who see that in you and who can help bring that out of you. And that's also something that I love about Texas A&M is the people in the community that I have, those people that help me see the things that I'm able to accomplish as a woman, as a student leader, as a human, and they help bring that out of me. And I'm very, very thankful for that and what I've gained through the Aggie Network in that aspect.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I will give my answer as well. I am a little different than these two women because I did not go to school here. And I've been here for 4 years now. But I think that Texas A&M has made a huge impact on how I am as a leader. And I think the main way that that has occurred is, as I kind of mentioned in my speech, every example that I had seen of leadership in academia, so as a faculty member, was one in which you get everything done all the time, and what's going on in your life doesn't matter. And it was very unflexible, I guess is maybe a decent way to say it. And when I came here, I remember when I had to, this was a couple years ago, I had to tell my boss that I was pregnant, and I thought I was gonna get fired because all the experience that I had seen, I was like, I was excited, my husband and I are gonna have our first kid, but I thought I was gonna get fired because that's what I had seen, is that as soon as you had children, you were not considered a good academic for women. And I remember telling him, and then my other boss, Dr. Parker, who's the head of the director of our program, and they were so excited. Like, they were just so excited and thought this was the greatest thing, and they were so supportive, and helped, get me things for the nursery and just all this wonderful stuff. And it honestly was surprising to me because it wasn't what I was expected. But I have taken what they have shown me, what the people at Texas A&M have shown me, that you can be a good leader and you can have balance and you can show compassion, which I talked about as something that my grandmother really emphasized, but it's not something I had seen in academia up to that point. And so I truly think, without coming here and being an Aggie, I don't think I would have understood for myself quite how to be a whole leader. So how to take care of myself and to have, all of these other things outside of my work and outside of my leadership. And so I'm very thankful for that, for Texas A&M showing me there is a different way to be a faculty member, essentially. There is a different way to do that. So I'm very grateful to that. Okay, so then the next question, let's see. So since all three of you show great confidence, one topic I heard discussed a lot is imposter syndrome. This is a good question. This was me in grad school. Okay. Feeling that you aren't as capable as others when you are more capable. I'm wondering if the pandemic has made you more or less confident, and whether you have suffered from imposter syndrome. So Kaylee, I will turn it to you for the first answer.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's interesting, first of all, that you mentioned that you've kind of experienced this as well. I think it's so prevalent with women in general that, you know, we feel like once we finally step into these shoes that we worked really hard to be in, that for some reason we don't feel like we're deserving of it. When in fact we probably have incredible qualifications to be in those shoes. And it's 100% something that I experienced when I first stepped into the role of chair as the muster committee. Prior to that role, I had been involved with the committee for several years and had been in other leadership organizations as well. And I had kind of marveled as I grew up and saw all of these student leaders who seemed to have all their ducks in a row, have all their you know, sentences so perfectly strung together, always had the right thing to say, always were so eloquent and well spoken. And I thought to myself, I just don't know how I'm ever going to get to that point. I don't know how I'm ever going to match that and that parameter of success. I just don't feel like I'm ever going to be able to attain that. And there was a turning point. I don't know if it was necessarily because of the pandemic, but it was the pandemic and the events surrounding that were definitely the beneficiary of me kind of growing into that confidence throughout the course of the year. But there was a moment at the beginning of the year when I had to tell myself, you know, you are not those leaders. You are someone else entirely. And the second that you step into your own merits and your own skills and your own strengths and harness that innate power is when you're going to be the best version of yourself, and you can harness the best version of the people that you're leading as well. And so it's not an easy process at all. And I think it's kind of a widespread phenomenon as well. And it takes time, but recognizing those things one moment at a time, building confidence, believing in yourself and the message that you are, you know, the message that you're giving and the mission that you're supporting is so important. And I think confidence in yourself allows other people to have confidence in you, which is something that's so important as well. So.
All right, thank you. Natalie, what about you?
I'm over here being like inspired as well. Kaylee, that was awesome. So I like this question about imposter syndrome, because if I'm being completely transparent and honest, I think that I more than likely experience, you know, aspects of not feeling that I'm capable of very much at all, probably a little bit every single day of my life. That is something that I fight inwardly in my head every single day. Whenever I hear someone say like, oh, maybe they didn't like the way that I like did something or presented something, or like, oh, just stuff like that like shouldn't get in your head, but just like the little tiny things that do, it's just always an active fight to realize that I am worthy, that what I'm doing, even if someone else might not agree 1,000% with how I presented a certain PowerPoint, or like how I gave this speech or this, that, or whatever. I was confident in myself when I did it. I am proud of the things that I've been able to accomplish in life. And I think that is more important than anything that Joe Blow said that tried to knock down your confidence and what you're capable of. For me, comparison has always been a struggle. And I feel like that is the case for millions of people in the world. It's very difficult to be in any sort of leadership position or just honestly exist as a human and always be surrounded by other humans who are doing really cool things and other leaders who are accomplishing amazing stuff. And you're over here like, well, what can I do to be as good as those people? And it's like, you already are as good as those people. You are yourself. You are working hard. And I think something that really helps me to get through those little phases of maybe I'm not good enough because I didn't do this the same way as so-and-so is that focusing on staying in your own lane, putting on a pair of blinders and focusing on what you are doing and not anybody else, because comparison is the thief of joy. And I have found that to be the case in every single thing that's ever happened in my life. And just kind of keeping that in mind and realizing that, like I said before, even if you don't see what you're doing is great, other people do. And just kind of keeping that in mind through the imposter syndrome periods of your life, then it keeps you going, it keeps you confident, and it keeps the negative self-talk away.
Right, thank you so much. Both of you, I like what both of you said, just kind of, you have to find your own way to lead and then be confident in that way that you're leading and really just be yourself and the type of leader that you are. So I'm going to ask both of you this question, but I'll start with Kaylee. Who do you look up to for inspiration or mentorship?
Absolutely. You know, I think this is quite a stereotypical answer, but both my mother and both of my grandmothers were incredible sources of wisdom. And I think when we're asked about who we look up to and who we aspire to be, you know, it's often the big name celebrities that kind of come up, or someone who, you know, notable authors or anything like that. And I don't think that there is anything wrong with finding wonder in the simple things and wonder in the people who have been around you your entire life. My mother and grandmothers have both taught me wonderful things about compassion and kindness and how far that can go. I think it's so easy to be kind, but often so few people truly are, and moments where kindness is really needed. That can take you so much further. And I think also, you know, as being a part of the muster committee, I had an incredible opportunity to work with so many stakeholders across the university, and see women and men in wonderful places of leadership and look up to them and see the work they do. But one of the really pivotal things for me was actually getting to speak to Amy Smith, who works here at the university as the Vice President of Communications. And we got to have a one-on-one conversation pretty early on in my position of being the chair of the muster committee. And when we just kind of sat down and talked about life and my aspirations and what she did. And, you know, she has this incredible resume and incredible wealth of experiences that she has done, but there's a humbleness and there's a grounding that centers around being a human and having a real conversation and a real connection with someone that can go so much further than, you know, saying the most perfect words or presenting the most incredible resume. So all across the board, everywhere from, you know, kind of my insight that I gained with her, which was much more than what I just said, by the way. She's so knowledgeable and has so many incredible things to say, but everything from that insight to her all the way down to my family members that I've looked up to my entire life, there's this component of being authentic to who you are, telling your own story, and doing it on purpose. I think there's this great quote by Dolly Parton, and I'm going to mess it up in this moment now, but it's like, know who you are and do it on purpose. And I think that's so accurate and so true, especially as women, for what we need to do is know who we are and be proud of it. Do it on purpose.
All right, thank you. That's wonderful. Natalie.
So I have found throughout the course of my life that I'm actually pretty easily inspired by a lot of different people and things and quotes. But I think that the core of it all, even though I'm always finding like new motivation, whether that be from like an Instagram quote that I find that I screenshot and I'm like, you know, that's really inspirational to me. I think that at the core of like everything, I really, really look up to my grandmother. We obviously grew up in very, very different time periods, but one of her things that I think I always admired her the most for was that she raised a family all on her own, however many years ago, in a time period that was very, very different. They lived on a farm and she worked hard to provide for her family. She went to college at night. She still worked on getting an education, and at the same time she was raising my mom and my mom's two sisters. So I always found that was admirable, that despite difficult circumstances and having to do things on your own in most circumstances, that when you're able to push through those difficult times. And she raised three wonderful women, my mother included, who is also one of my role models, that she showed me that anything is possible, to never doubt yourself. And I very, very much value her being a part of my life and continuing to give me the wisdom and advice that she does, and support. She's one of my biggest supporters, and I appreciate that.
All right, thank you so much. Those were both wonderful answers. And there are so many fantastic questions in here. I really wish that we could get to all of them, but we only have about 5 minutes left for the panel. So I was gonna just pick one more question, and I think that this one is a good one to end the panel on, because it's essentially what advice would you give to younger women? So the question is saying that this documentary showed the hardships of women in leadership positions and how important it is to empower younger women, maybe even at junior high school stage. And so I guess I will start with you, Natalie, and then I'll go to Kaylee. But what would be your most important advice that you would give to younger women in terms of leadership, coming into leadership positions?
Absolutely. I think the number one thing that I would say to anybody is literally to just believe in yourself. This question actually takes me back to high school and an experience that I had in one of my first and favorite leadership positions. I was in high school, I was president of Key Club, which is a service organization that exists worldwide. And I remember I was running in those elections when I was a junior, I was running against a boy. And our advisor, who had been with the club for like 30 years, he had been president back in his day in like the 70s when girls were not allowed in Key Club. He wanted the guy to win. And I remember when I won the election and I started putting in the work, he had no confidence in me whatsoever that I would be able to succeed in that capacity. And I remember I just wanted to kind of prove him wrong a little bit. And I did. I was able to raise our membership in that organization to like the biggest in the school. We had over 100 members. We did so many impactful service projects and philanthropy events and things like that that impacted the community, my high school. And I just remember if I hadn't believed in myself and what I was capable of, then he never would have come up to me at the end of the year and been like, I was wrong about you. You did a great job. And of course, never go about doing things in a way just to get praise from other people. Always do it for yourself. But I would absolutely tell anybody who was pursuing any sort of leadership role or position or opportunity or just getting involved in anything to believe in yourself and don't let anything negative that anyone says prevent you from accomplishing your goals, because you are capable of literally anything that you put your mind to.
Thank you. That's wonderful. That's wonderful advice. Kaylee, what advice would you give to younger women?
Right. So I think this is going to kind of be an encapsulation of everything that I've said thus far. But one of the things that my mom always told me was to be an advocate for who you uniquely are and celebrate that. I think, you know, we are all empty canvases, so to speak, when we're put on this earth, and over time there's things that change us and that kind of get added to the landscape of who we are. And I think sometimes we often kind of put those things into two categories of either being good or bad. But it truly is, it's the combination of both of those things, the challenges that you face and the successes that you find that slowly kind of put the pieces together of creating who you are. And I think that there's beauty in struggle. There's beauty in overcoming things that you didn't foresee, and there's beauty in overcoming things that you didn't even think that you were capable of. And so I would tell any young girl that, you know, this life is hard, but you have to believe in yourself, and don't make life harder by trying to control the things that you can't control, because it becomes infinitely more difficult when you try to take on everything in the world. Focus on being the best version of who you are and helping out as many people along the way. And I think that is a very simple but very powerful formula for success.
Great, thank you so much. Those were both wonderful. And I think I will add to, but really just summarize the things that you two are saying from my perspective of what advice I would offer. It's really just that you can do it. You know, I work with a lot of graduate students and undergraduate students, and there's just women in general, there's so much potential, and we can do it. It's just about taking the chances and having confidence and learning and being okay with making mistakes. And that's all part of the learning process, making mistakes or failing. I don't like to use that word because I don't really think anything's a failure. You're learning from that experience. So But all of those will just teach you and get you further along the course to being a leader and the type of leader that you want to be. So that would be kind of similar to what you two said, but now, so we are out of time for the panel discussion, but I'm going to turn it over to Mary McDowell to talk about how the breakout sessions are going to work and kind of give you all information about that section of the event.
Guys, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Christine, Natalie, and Kaylee. It's terrific hearing from you guys. And one of the things that really strikes me is Natalie, you and Kaylee are young, and just to have gotten that level of insight at your age, you're well on your way. So I really appreciate it. And Christy, great job doing the moderation there. So we're about to go into breakout rooms. This is going to be fun, y'all. We've never done this before. You're going to be automatically put into a breakout room kind of randomly with one moderator. And we're going to give that 12 minutes before we return to the main event. When you get into the breakout room, just go ahead and unmute and start your video. And once we're pretty much done, you're going to have a message that tells you when there's 1 minute left. And then the greatness of Zoom, it's all going to suck us back into the main event, and we can finish up then. So everybody, have a great conversation. We'll see you in 12 minutes. Thank you.
I trust everyone's back. Howdy, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you were inspired in your breakout session. I know I was, talking about leadership and just the little treasures and nuggets we took from tonight. So I'm sure all of you got something very worthwhile out of our speakers and out of your breakout. I'm Kristin Cox, class of '83, and the president-elect for Aggie Women Network. I just want to thank everyone for spending part of your evening with us tonight, and let you know, if you are not yet a member of Aggie Women Network, or you know other Aggie women who have not yet joined, I encourage you to go ahead and join today. You can go to aggiewomen.com and join online. The networking, the mentoring, the recognition that we do, we continue to expand and grow that every year, and we've really invested in that in the past couple years. This is just one example. We welcome your involvement, and the first step is joining and then sharing that blessing with another Aggie woman. You all get a very special treat tonight in being the very first people to hear about our Legacy Award recipients for 2020. Mary Jo Prince, class of '78, and Randy Mays Knapp, class of '76. Both of them are with us tonight, and I would like to congratulate them both. We normally, or traditionally, we have another event in the fall to honor our legacy recipients. Nothing's done traditionally this year, so we will have something online. You need to be watching our social media, watching our website, because we will be honoring these two ladies for their great accomplishments and contributions to current and future Aggie women. That's what the selection committee is looking for, leaving a legacy. So congratulations, Mary Jo. Congratulations, Randy. I know you're with us, and be watching our website. So other announcements. Don't forget our next October 1st Thursday, Micro Habits for Higher Performing You, with guest speakers, Aggie women, Meg Hare, class of '02, and Melissa Maloney Walk, class of '96. Also check the chat. I don't see anything right now, but check your chat for links for Beyond the Books and for Aggie Women Wine. And also, if you're attending for extra credit, check the chat for the links for that. Thank you once again for joining us, and I look forward to connecting with you all more throughout the year, virtually and in person one day. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Melissa to announce the winners of the silent auction and the door prize. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you, Kristin, and thanks to everyone who bid on the auction and donated. I'm proud to say we have collected more than $3,600 this year. That is beyond our record. We're so excited. So I want to give a special thank you to our silent auction donors. We couldn't have been as successful without you. Once again, we will contact the winners about collecting your items this weekend and next to figure out the best time to get them to you. For our participants, you will receive a survey tomorrow. We value your feedback to improve our program, so please take time to complete it. The survey will be open for 2 weeks. And now, our door prize winner, the winner of the new Kendra Scott earrings is Chelsea McCauley. Chelsea, are you there? We will contact you soon and get you your earrings. I hope you enjoy wearing them on game day. I want to say thank you again to our speakers, our silent auction donors, the Aggie Women Network, the Women's Resource Center, and everyone for attending tonight. Thanks and gig 'em.